The NBA trade deadline is rapidly approaching, and the Philadelphia 76ers do not find themselves in the position that they expected. With some difficult decisions to make, the trade talks are beginning to heat up as Daryl Morey sorts through whether or not it is the best direction for the Sixers team to be buyers or sellers. Now, we know that the wheels have fallen off for this season quite early on, that we've only seen 10 games collectively in which Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey have each played together, and while the Sixers are 7-3 in those matchups, they're in 11th place in the Eastern Conference, which puts them in a difficult position. Now, we've had the conversations about, is it time to wave the white flag on the season? I still totally hear that argument, see that side of things, and have felt that way at times. But I still also think that this team specifically could be committed to trying to give this a go this year. And I think that the actions by Daryl Morey specifically over these next couple weeks will directly tell us. Now, to dive into what the reports are today, do want to start off with this from shout out to our guy, Philly Sixers Galaxy. This coming from Mark Stein originally that says, the Sixers have already received multiple trade offers from, quote, playoff-bound teams for Guerschon Yabusele. Quote, the Sixers, I'm told, love Guerschon Yabusele. League sources say that Philadelphia has already received multiple trade offers from playoff-bound teams for Yabusele. The belief is that the Sixers want to gauge the results over the next week before firing up the trade deadline or before firming up their trade deadline approach. Now, granted, who wouldn't love Guerschon Yabusele? For starters, the on-court play far exceeding expectations. He's averaging 10.3 points, 5.5 rebounds, 2.0 assists per game, shooting 49.8% from the field, 39.4% from three on legitimate volume there, just a little bit shy of 4 attempts per game there, 40.9% at the corner, still 29 years old, and a guy who has wholeheartedly embraced Philadelphia. I mean, to point out where this guy was at yesterday, right up there at Lincoln Financial Field, taking in his first ever football game and loving it online, to the point where he's still tweeting about it today. I love this from him today, saying, can somebody explain to me what happened here? I was confused and couldn't understand. Serious question. And by the way, Guerschon, all of us were quite confused at home as well, but go Birds, they did get the job done despite the I would call it dirty play from Frankie Louvu there. But now, to keep it going and keep this train on the tracks here, I also will acknowledge that I did quote tweet one of the videos of Guerschon cheering on, doing the Fly Eagles and chant, and said Guerschon Yabusele cannot leave under any circumstances. I don't care what it takes. Philadelphia has to find a way to keep him, and Guerschon himself did like that tweet there. So take that for what you mean. I do think that he does like it in Philadelphia, and for what it's worth, he was asked directly about it by Kyle Neubeck of PHOY Sports last week at practice. Thought it was a pretty nice answer from Guerschon, that he was basically said, I'm committed to trying to get this team back on track. Whatever happens, happens. It's out of my control, but I'm here in Philadelphia. I'm going to play my heart out. It was essentially what his message was, and I do think that is the right approach. Now, the side that I see the argument or the valid side of trading Guerschon is it does seem unlikely the Sixers are going to be able to sign him. And when you have a guy on a one-year contract who, while he loves it in Philadelphia, the clear game plan for him was to get out of his contract overseas, come to the United States, play one season on this minimum contract, and that this summer would be his prize. Now, he is executing that plan perfectly, that he is setting himself up for a massive payday, and in fact, one that the Sixers might not reach. So when you factor in the likelihood that he likely walks anyway, on top of this season just seeming like it's not in the cards, and he's not going to be this vital glue to a playoff team on the Sixers in all likelihood that he really should be, that he absolutely can help any contender out there. He's a guy that I truly believe you can plug and play on any roster, and that he will make his impact found. But I do understand the legitimacy of seeing a couple more games. Now, granted, to acknowledge the standings as a whole, yes, the Sixers are in 11th place there, but just one game behind the Bulls for that final play-in slot. Everyone, and as I mentioned, with the jobs on the line, Nick Nurse himself, Daryl Morey, speaking about their desire to still continue to compete. As much as it has been a disaster, there is still a little bit less than half the season left, around 40 games for each team there. And when you look up top a little bit higher in the conference here, the Detroit Pistons, 13 games back of first place there, the Sixers 18.5. So we're talking about 5.5 games out of an actual playoff seed. Do I think it's likely that they can climb that high? There is not much evidence to support that to be the case, but my point being here, it is not impossible, and frankly, the pathway is there. The opportunity is there. There's a lot of games still to be played. So if that is the logic, I understand sticking with Guerschon, and for what it's worth, this would not be a situation in which I'm just seeking max value. If the decision is, a second-round pick from the Thunder, and he could be happy there, or 2 second-round picks from a place where he'd be miserable. He is a guy that I feel that they should do right by. That Guerschon, obviously, it's a two-way street. The Sixers are benefiting from him in the same way that he's benefiting from the Sixers, but I do think that there is a little bit of loyalty to this guy in a way that I did not expect to develop in half a season here. Now, he's not the only name that has come up in reports and trade rumors here, and I did want to highlight this as well. This coming from Brett Siegel of Clutch Points here. Also, our guy, Philly Sixers Galaxy, tweeting this out, and he said, quote, "There's been, quote, some talks around the league about the Sixers becoming sellers at the February 6th trade deadline, specifically with Kelly Oubre, Caleb Martin, and KJ Martin," per Brett Siegel. Quote, "Philadelphia is currently $10.1 million over the tax line and will pay close to $17 million in taxes if they don't shed salary. There has been some talk of the 76ers being sellers, specifically targeting Kelly Oubre, Caleb Martin, and KJ Martin. Plenty of teams would have serious interest in Caleb if the 76ers are willing to move him. That is one that I'm not interested in. I understand the Caleb Martin experience has not been as desired this year, but frankly, I'm completely comfortable that they hand him a 4-year contract and seeing that through at least for another season. He will be playing better basketball than we've seen from him this year. And the stats do not tell the full story with Caleb. We've known that about him through the entirety of his career, but he is still averaging 9.1 points, 4.4 rebounds, 2.2 assists, shooting 37.9% from 3. We all remember the Christmas Day game, which he absolutely slaughtered that Celtics team, and that is a huge reason why he's here. He hates Boston just as much as everyone within the Sixers organization, and a guy who has had his biggest moments when the lights have been the brightest. He is a playoff riser, and I do think that is important to have on the Sixers team, and paying him a little bit over $8 million a season is totally fair value. I would even argue plus value for a guy the caliber of player that he is, and that I do think he will ultimately settle into. Let's not forget when he was so brutal or really struggling at the start of the season. Very clearly was playing through injury and battling that shoulder injury there. Since he came back, the shot has looked cleaner. The stats have been better. He's been executing at a higher level, and we can see that. Now, granted, he has been out for a little bit of an extended period to this point. The hope is that he will be returning in the near future, but it also wouldn't be shocking to me if this is something correlated to, let's see what the direction of this team is. If we need you for this final playoff push, if this ends up just being kind of a lost season, let's focus up on next year, I could see that being the approach. Now, the two other names that are mentioned in this I also think are interested. For starters, KJ Martin has been the guy that we've had circled since the offseason of he signed this balloon contract. He's going to be traded at the deadline there for whatever their missing piece is. The Sixers are not in a spot where they're just looking for one missing piece. So with that being said, I would have no problem with just running back the same exact game plan next year. That essentially it is a 1+1 deal with KJ Martin there. I find it hard to believe that he would opt out of that. I think that he more than likely is going to sign up with it. I think it is a team option to correct myself there. So the Sixers will have control of it. There's even more value if it is an expiring deal that they can hold on to that next year. And frankly, I've liked what I've seen from KJ in the wider scale of the season. I thought he's had some nice flashes. I think this year has been by far the best that he's played with the Sixers team, significantly better than last year. I think he's found himself as far as what his role expectation, what he can bring to this team. And these are all encouraging factors. So you shouldn't give up on young talent just to give up on him. If there is a move that you can clearly get better or set yourself up better in the long term, I understand it, but I no longer feel the need to. They have to trade KJ Martin at the point where I once did or expected to be heading into the season. And as far as Kelly Oubre, he's been nothing short of awesome for the Sixers team this season. The perimeter defense, the rebounding, he's had 25 rebounds over the past 2 games here, really stepping up in a bunch of areas where the Sixers have needed, and a guy that gets a pop from the crowd and brings an emotion in a way that I think is necessary on this Sixers team. So shout out to Kelly. He's really put on the hard hat kind of bucket approach here, that he's just going to carry his lunch pail to work and go do business. He does the dirty work, and that is something that I did not expect to be the perception of Kelly Oubre Jr. We've seen the versions of bad Kelly in past years in different uniforms. There really has not been very much of that in a Sixers uniform, and I do appreciate that quite a bit. Now, we also got the kind of follow-up on this report that the Sixers could be committed to seeing where things go. This is what I do think is the more likely approach from the Sixers direction, but again, I do think the next couple weeks, or I guess 2 weeks at this point, will tell us the story here. If the Sixers absolutely bottom out and are chasing that draft pick, I do think that is the right long-term direction. I think there's a strong case to be made, but where it gets complicated is everyone's jobs are on the line. To Nick Nurse's credit, since he freaked out after the Nuggets game in which they did not show up whatsoever, did not care, seemingly have any sort of energy in that matchup, he let them have it in the locker room. They have responded. They're coming off back-to-back wins, showing a little bit of positive life, playing better basketball. These are things that, to his credit, it looks like he has not lost the locker room. for Daryl Morey, we'll see what the outlook is from here. But we see the Bob Myers whispers. He sees the Bob Myers whispers. He's more chronically online than just about any general manager or president of basketball operations in the sport. And I guarantee he feels a little bit of the pressure there as well. So with all that being said, I do think that the signs are pointing to the Sixers trying to scrape something out of that season. Do I think the Sixers have any sort of chance of winning a championship or competing in the playoffs at this current moment? Absolutely not. But will I get there if we can have an encouraging second half of the season and we can see a consistent sample size with Joel Embiid, with Paul George, with Tyrese Maxey, with this team as constructed to be as designed or constructed to be designed there? Sure. So we'll see what is the case there. But this is going to be an eventful couple weeks for the Sixers team. How active they are and what decisions they make, I do think will tell the story for the future of the season, but I'm going to be buckled up and riding regardless of what happens. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Drop your thoughts on which of those players you'd be open to moving, or if you do think it is the right call to hang on for dear life and hope for the best come playing tournament. So drop your thoughts below. Again, a lot of season left to go and be plugging along right alongside with you. So make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like on this video. I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.